The year is 1930. Prohibition is running rampant in New York City, with crime families stumbling over each other for a chance to gain some power. In other news, there's been rumors of people coming back to life after being shot in the head. Many different rumors and characters all coming together as the Flying Pussyfoot sets off on its transcontinental adventure. Who will survive and who will fall? This is Baccano.
I almost kind of want to keep the New Yorker accent, but nah, I'm into serious mode. That's right, we have completed yet another series, pretty infamous. That, of course, being the anime series, Baccano. Now, this is one I've heard about for a while, as with everything, but now if you look in the background over here, I have this poster, which is 100 anime, where it's like you scratch it off if you've watched it. This has sort of been my motivation to watch a lot of anime, just because, you know, it kind of gamifies it. But on the list, like somewhere around here, I think, is Baccano. And though it's a name I've heard about for a while, that kind of motivated me to be like, all right, let's scratch it off the list. And I don't think anything could have prepared me for what this was. I mean, granted, I knew roughly what it was, just based off like a couple scenes I've seen and just like a rough idea that it was, you know, 1930s America. I knew it was set in that era. One thing I was not ready for was there was actually a supernatural aspect to it. Right away, I normally kind of do like spoiler free and then spoiler, but I'm just gonna say as a blanket, spoiler warning for Baccano. I won't go into too many things, but there are a couple things that would be best experienced not knowing anything. Now, this show was done pretty well by Studio Brains Base, who I've never heard of. Oh, they've done Durarara. That makes sense. And they've done a bunch of other things that are still being done to this day. But before I get all into the technical side of things, what is the plot of Baccano? Well, it's kind of hard to say it in like a streamlined thing just because how the story is portrayed in this is, it's told out of order. It's one of those ones where you watch the first couple episodes really, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? But then you get to the very end and then you think back to the first episode, it's like, oh, that all makes sense now. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you do a story like that, where you show the end of the story at the very beginning, where it definitely establishes a lot of intrigue, but I think you do sort of kind of maybe sacrifice certain people just being too overwhelmed with information, which I almost was. I mean, I'm at the point now where even if it's like that, I'm gonna keep watching, obviously. The main chunk of it takes place on this train, where it's pretty much like a train heist from a bunch of different parties all coming together. Like, everyone's getting on this train, which is amazingly named the Flying Pussyfoot. I just love that name. The story jumps back and forth from when everyone's on the train to then how everyone got to the point where they're on the train. Honestly, now that I'm like kind of looking at like the notes here and just kind of thinking back to everything, I definitely enjoyed this show a lot more than I'm letting on. Because I initially was kind of going to come in and be like, you know what, it was really good, but it was kind of confusing. But the more I'm thinking about it, now that when I think about the story and like a streamlined thing, it's like, it was really good. The story pretty much is, yeah, everyone's like getting involved. You know, there's different gangs. You know, there's the Russos and the Lemur gang. They're trying to kidnap the senator's family. Jacuzzi and his gang, they're there. And their whole thing is they're just trying to protect the passengers. And then there's Russo, Lad Russo, who I will talk about in a second, who's leading the white suits. They're on the train to have a good time. And for Lad, a good time is murdering a bunch of people. A bunch of differing agendas all coming together, then people interacting. And of course, on the train, there's the whole thing with the rail tracer, which that's still a part of the story that I'm not too clear on. But before we get to the whole train thing, like, we have to go back all the way from 1930 to 1711, where it's a group of people on this boat who I think are French. At least that's what the voice acting led me to believe they were. Where a group of alchemists, pretty much they're trying to discover eternal life, and they do by talking to the devil, and they get an elixir of immortality, they become immortal, and one of the alchemists is Zillard. He consumes all the other people, because how you kill an immortal? Well, they gotta be killed by another immortal, and they like pretty much touch their hand to their head and consume them. Pretty much for the next like several hundred years, it's Zillard trying to go after all the other immortals, mainly the main one, Misa. And after a couple hundred years, Zillard finally is able to recreate the elixir. So it pretty much is like two plots. It's like the different crime families like fighting each other, and then also this whole elixir thing. And that's pretty much the rough overview. You know, there's like fights, deaths, betrayals, backstabs, with some supernatural stuff in there. And some funny comedy, both with like the character of Lad and of course Isaac and Miria. Now I will say, like, thinking about it all, I didn't expect there to be a supernatural thing in it. Like, I was expecting it to just be just this crime oriented set in the 1930s America, but there was, you know, the whole immortal side of it, which I almost want to say that you could have maybe taken that out. I mean, it plays a part in the plot, obviously. I don't know, like, the more I think about it, it's like, I feel like you could have changed it, but then again, maybe it might not have done as well if it didn't have, like, that little sprinkle of supernatural stuff in it. I will also say, this show, it's only 13 episodes, there are the 3 specials, but it's a show that once you get to the end, it's like, this could have been like a 24 episode show, I feel like, because there's so many characters, so many plots. I mean, it does well considering how short it is. And again, I don't know if like the full manga of it has been adapted. Wait a minute, it's still technically going, because the original light novel says it's from 2003 to present. So you're telling me this story is still not done yet. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but granted, that's what this show does as well. It jumps all over the place, but I want to give praise to the voice actors, because I will say, this is one that I watched in English, and I'm gonna be honest, I think it's one that you should watch in English. Because I kind of jumped a little bit to like the Japanese because I was just curious, like I wonder how this scene was done. Because it's one of those ones where it's set in America. The dub voices for this did such a good job. Pretty much every character put like kind of that New Yorkin like twang to their voice. No, hey Tony, I need you to give me my money, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just funny like seeing a story like this, and it's like I wonder what the author for this did to get inspiration. Oh my god. I'm just reading like some of the background on this. Apparently, the director for the English dub, Tyler Walker, held auditions for 6 days. 140 people for 18 main characters. The longest casting process Funimation ever held. I mean, the voice actors he chose for them were phenomenal. I'd say probably the most recognizable voice, obviously by like modern stuff, was J. Michael Tatum was the voice of Isaac, which was perfect. But dude, okay. Brian Macy as the voice of Loud Russo, I think is now one of my favorite dub performances ever. It's just one of those moments where I wish I could have just been a fly on the wall when he did his audition. I wonder if he even wanted to be Loud Russo, because that's the thing with like some of these voices, for both just like actors and also just voice actors, it's like it makes you wonder like what kind of voice did they originally audition for? This camera is gonna be the death of me. Oh, he's Oolong, at least in Kai. You know what? That makes sense. I hear that. Loud Russo, I think overall was my favorite character. He's like Dio if he was American. I mean, both just like in design and just personality. Kono Dioda. Like, he's just someone who wants to kill everybody. And like his relationship with his fiance. This woman exists for the sole purpose of being killed by me. And just his fight with the one girl on top of the train. The biggest praise I give to this, and even though it's not technically, I guess, part of the show itself, is the dub voice acting. You could tell the voice actors really had fun with the script, especially, you know, the ADR directors. They actually wanted it to feel like authentic, you know, New York American accents. Overall, I don't think I spoiled too much of really what happened. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's kind of hard to spoil because, again, the story is told out of order. I'm curious if someone's done it. What does Baccano look like if you actually edited it to all, like, play in order? Honestly, I feel like it wouldn't be as memorable, or it wouldn't be as interesting. I don't know. It's a 50-50 with that kind of thing when you tell the story out of order like that. It's like, in some cases, if the story's good, it works. But I've seen many cases where someone tries to do that for the sake of being different. Why just tell it in order? By the end, it made me kind of want to go back and watch the first episode again, just because once you get to the very end, like all the certain like pieces line up and certain scenes happen, it's like, oh, okay. But I will say, it does, like, when you get to certain scenes like throughout the show and certain characters interact, you remember then like the first episode, it's like, oh, these characters talk here and they said this thing, that means that they're gonna got it. In its own way, the show sets itself up to spoil itself. It's a world and series that had so much in it, but it was so short. I assume like there's probably more with the light novel. For what the show covered, I really enjoyed it. So overall, what would I give Baccano in terms of a score? I would say it's an easy 9 out of 10. I don't want to give it a 10 out of 10, just, I don't know if this is necessarily a point against it, but it's just like, it was short. Plus, there's also just so many characters, so much story to it. It was very rich, almost too rich. But even still, I absolutely recommend Baccano, especially if you're into stuff like The Godfather, The Untouchables, all that kind of stuff. Plus, the music was really good as well. Either way, this was just my quick little review for Baccano. I want to incorporate more of this poster in like my reviews and whatnot, just so maybe we can get to the point where we scratch off. It's probably going to be a long while before everything on this is crossed off. I've only gotten to 50. I think Baccano was 50. So we're halfway through. I'm looking at that list. I'm like, there's some on there I do not want to watch. Like Fairy Tail, Seven Deadly Sins, and stuff like that. It's like, I could technically just cross them off because I already know that I'm not gonna enjoy it that much, but I don't know, my pride almost won't let me. Especially since also One Piece is on there as well. And well, I would tell you what the next thing is that I'm watching. I will say it is on that list, but I don't want to spoil it because I don't know if I actually want to do a review on it or not, because I'm not that far into it, so we'll just have to see. But either way, this was my review for the series Baccano. I do highly recommend it. Join me for many other videos of this sort, be they future reviews, reactions, gameplay, and everything else that'll be coming out soon. Until next time, I'm Lancer. Thanks for watching.